Right, lads, it's only right that we cover the craziest year in Irish football, isn't it? 2019. How mad was it, lads? Was it the crazy? Like, no offense, but both of you are on this earth a lot longer than me, aren't you? Like, we have to admit that. Is this the craziest year ever in Irish football in living memory?
First of all, you're a cheeky bastard. Second of
A
all,
beautiful
yes,
cheeky
a
bastard.
beautiful cheeky. You are a beautiful cheeky bastard. Yeah. I can only speak for myself, Martin, but I think you know you're on this earth even longer than I am. Uh,
Way.
and I have to say, this is the craziest year I've ever known in Irish football. Irish football is crazy. I was only talking about this to somebody. Why are you into Irish football? And as I said to them, and I'll say here now, Irish football is always interesting. There's always crazy stuff happening, but this was just like one after the other. It was absolutely mental, and it,
Crazier than 2002.
yes,
Crazier than Saipan. I mean, that's one occurrence, isn't it? But crazier than that.
this was like an entire association brought to its knees. This was a mad campaign, qualifying campaign. We had players. It was incredible. The scandal coming out of Abbottstown was just unbelievable, and it was like this constant drip all through the year. And then you got ministers getting involved and everything. It was just, and the most important thing is, lads, you have to remember the most important thing of this year, that this was the year that Lansdowneroad.ie was found.
Most importantly, it's kind of like it's like the sequel to that Father Ted episode where they have the priest match, the football match.
Mm.
It's basically if Father Ted had an FAI episode, it would be this, wouldn't it? If they had an Irish football episode, it would be 2019.
Yeah, this is right. I would, as the elder statesman of the Green Machine podcast, and the wisest. Yeah, this
Hey,
is mad. This is mental. We, this is a culmination of the FAI's ineptness over the years. From, in a way, kind of foundation. We've always had scandals, even when the FAI was founded 100 years ago. When it was established, it was mad. Obviously, the split at the time, but we've had Saipan, we've had scandals in between, we've had ticketing scandals, all sorts of stuff like that. This is actually the unraveling of the association. This is where this particular year, and we're still dealing with it now, and the repercussions of this. This is where it just was falling apart, and very, very entertaining from the outside, which we'll obviously
yeah.
come into. I mean, there's a lot of football going on, but we're actually going to be talking a lot more about some of the politics and some of the scandals, and basically lots of secrets kind of revealed. And it's a really interesting topic to kind of chat about. And I think when we look back, Saipan has been analysed, and it's 20 years on from that this year. But I think when we look back in a few years' time at this is going to be crazy. I mean, it's summed up very well in the excellent Champagne football, as we know. But still, there's still repercussions to come from this, and we're still feeling this now, sadly.
Well, I mean, this was kind of originally planned to be a Mick McCarthy part 5 or part 4 or whatever part it was going to be, the second coming of Mick. But there was so much in it that it had to be an episode in its own right or a series in its own right. So this is the first of three episodes
Mm.
with this series arc. So the craziest year in Irish football. But we can't really start off until we talk about the tail end of 2018. So, of course, 25th of November, so Mick McCarthy reappointed as Ireland manager on a 2-year deal, approximately 1.2 million a year, and Stephen Kenny becoming the under-21 manager. And, of course, it was announced that he would take over from Mick McCarthy when the Euro 2020 +1 in the end, wasn't it? +1 in the end when that campaign ended. And Terry Connor and Robbie Keane, of course, assisting Mick. And Robbie Keane, as David says here in his fantastic, thorough notes, coming in the David Beckham role. What do we make of that appointment, lads? Because when I, like the previous appointment, Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane, I don't want to dwell too much on it, but I mean, that was my favorite manager as a kid and my favorite player as a kid. And then Mick McCarthy was, all these nostalgic feelings. Like, I mean, I have a bit of a graph for the 2002 World Cup, one of my early football memories. And Mick McCarthy, I didn't like him at the time because I love Roy Keane so much. But as the years went on, I said, you know what? We played nice football under him. He promised us nice football. in 2018, didn't he? So what do we make of that appointment, and what do we make of the whole scenario, this strange scenario? Because that's kind of the first controversy in a way, like a manager getting appointed as the under-21 boss, and then all of a sudden he's been thrust into the senior job, kind of retrospectively.
I actually liked it. I thought it made sense at the time. You know, realistically, Stephen Kenny should have been installed as manager in 2018 when O'Neill had obviously lost the passion for the job, when the Irish press dared question him after the 5-1 drubbing and asked genuine questions. And obviously, you know, he was very hurt by all that. You know, he had this interest for the Premier League club, I think, with Everton, and he had Stoke, I think, at the time, and they were only going to offer him, like, you know, interim deals, this kind of thing, and he wanted something a bit better because he is the infallible Martin O'Neill. That was the time when Kenny should have been put in charge. He would have had a whole year of fixtures of friendlies to get it right. He would have had the Nations League at the end. Instead, we went through absolute dross with O'Neill and Keane falling out with players.
Got very stale.
It was very stale, very moribund, to quote Alan Partridge. It was really, really poor stuff. And this would have been a perfect year for Stephen Kenny. Now, if we had had a half decent CEO actually gave two shits about Irish football, he would have seen this and not bowed down to a footballing legend. And Martin O'Neill is a football legend, and so is Roy Keane. He would have made the right decision for Irish football. Say, you know what, lads, we need a change. We need a fresh approach. And for me, it should have been Stephen Kenny taking over 2018. Now, of course, that didn't happen. And at the back end of 2018, obviously, we've got Mick coming in. To me, it made sense. And this is why, and we're going to talk about it, obviously, in subsequent episodes, I can't be too harsh on Mick for this period because
You love him.
well, I do love Mick, and he's a lovely guy, by the way. He really is that gruff kind of Yorkshireman thing. You know, he is a gruff Yorkshireman, but he's such a lovely guy, and we'll talk about that as well in subsequent episodes too. But look, he's brought in by Delaney, and Delaney says, "Look, we've got to get to the Euros 2020 Dublin, okay? And it's a lot easier now to qualify for these Euros. We've got, if results go correctly, we've got a possible playoff, but we can win this group, or we can come second in this group." Just get us there. I don't care how you do it, just get us there. And then after that, then we'll do the slow rebuild, which we're kind of experiencing now under Steve McKennie. So in a weird way, it was very, very strange the way he went about it, but I could see the logic, funnily enough. But I think it was a plan. The middlemen, McCarthy and O'Neill should have been out of the equation in 2018. Stephen Kenny should have been put in charge. Terry, I keep calling him Terry Conroy. Terry Connor coming in as mix number 2 obviously makes perfect sense. Another gentleman, by the way. Robbie Keane, I understood having him involved, being an Irish legend, but I didn't know about Robbie Keane then in terms of the arrangement, and obviously we read about it in Champagne Football, what we know now. So at the time, I had no issue with Robbie Keane in charge. Obviously, I say the David Beckham cheerleader role because, quite frankly, as we find out as it goes on, he didn't do a hell of a lot in the training ground. So, and he's still getting paid for it. Which
he still is actually, yeah.
Yeah, so I've gone on a bit there, but I was for this. I thought this made sense, although it shouldn't have come to this. It made sense to sort of like pull the nose up, shall we say?
Yeah. What did you make of it, Martin?
I think this was the John Delaney.
Honestly.
Yep. This is the John Delaney gamble. You know, he's in bed with UEFA. He's got the Dublin Euro 2020 finals coming that he is determined for Ireland to be in, participating in. He's under pressure after the game, the dead rubber in Aarhus, where then they fired a bullet and they, you know, Martin O'Neill's gone, Keane's gone. Seriously under pressure that night. Lots of protests by the fans had started actually in the stadium that night. You know, the famous song, you know, they always cheat, they always lie. That was aired that night. Protest banners, things like that. He was seriously under pressure. I think I alluded to it in the past. I was with him at the game at one stage, and he told me that Stephen Kenny had been offered the under-21 job. So he was making decisions, again, to save his own skin, as we find out in Champagne Football. I actually have a lot more. I had a lot of respect for Stephen Kenny that he was so insistent. I think this is going to set us up going forward. That he magically negotiated this deal with John Delaney that he was going to be the successor no matter what. That's great negotiation skills, basically, because contractually then he's sorted for that, which I think we are. Yeah, we're all Stephen Kenny fans. We can see the changes that have come since he's come involved. So I think very good on his part. The Keane thing didn't really, again, we found out from Champagne Football that he's got this crazy deal as well, that he's going to be kept on after Mick, and that if once the Euro 2020 campaign finishes, I think it was just an ultimate gamble by Delaney, seriously under pressure, as we'll come to find out. And in the backdrop of this, we've got so much going on with players who are eligible for Ireland or not eligible. So it's just a real desperate situation for us to kind of evolve as a footballing nation at this time. And I think Delaney kind of thought, I'm going to get a safe pair of hands in here now with Mick. The fans will love him because we've moved on, 16 years or whatever it is from Saipan. Mick's done well. He's very well respected. We know what we're going to get. And it was like, I think Delaney saw this campaign as a bit of a relegation battle. We've got 6 or 7 games, and we will bring a manager in who will get us the results to get us to the tournament. That's what he gambled on. He wasn't bothered about Kenny coming in, and he couldn't afford to. As we know, we couldn't afford to rip up a script and go, oh, look, we'll actually qualify in 2024. Delaney had to make sure that we were in a good position as possible to qualify for the Euros in our own backyard, which sadly didn't obviously come.
Yeah, so Martin mentioned a couple of minutes ago, so Irish eligible players, and that being part of the background of this year that made it just that bit crazier. And of course, we're talking about Declan Rice. So a week after Mick was appointed, he did say that he was absolutely delighted that Declan Rice was willing to speak with him. So a few quotes here. So from Declan Rice, this is the 3rd of December, 2018. So Declan Rice saying, Mick has spoken to my dad and he wants to meet me and my dad, which I said was fine. I haven't spoken to Mick myself yet, but my dad has. There's no date planned yet. There are a lot of things going on with my football at the moment. I'm playing here week in, week out. And obviously, there's my contract situation, which is a lot to take on at a young age. So again, the contract situation seems to always be in the background or part of the distraction. And then these quotes from Mick. I told you. I don't even know what
Don't do it.
I won't do it. So Mick, I told you at the press conference that I was going to meet him, and that's just what I'll do. I'm delighted that's what he wants to do, because if he said yesterday that he didn't want to meet, it would have been a problem. So that was kind of the start of the end of that saga, I suppose. And on the 15th of January of 2019, so Martin O'Neill appointed as Nottingham Forest manager, and of course bringing Roy Keane with him. So 13th of February, day before Valentine's Day, I remember this so vividly, Declan Rice formally declaring for England, putting out a statement. Do you want to read this out, Martin? I'm only joking. So the quote here from Rice: like so many people around the world, I consider myself to be mixed nationality. I'm a proud Englishman. Still hurts, doesn't it, lads? Having been born and raised in London. However, I am just as proud as my family's Irish heritage and my affinity and connection with the country.
What a load!
Heartbreak the night before Valentine's Day.
What a load of bollocks! Yeah. What a load of bollocks from that man.
Did it come from him? Did it come from an advisor? Did it come from someone else?
Listen, there was a lot of things going on there. That lad, listen, he's a quality footballer, and I remember actually watching him live against Arsenal. I think he scored a goal against Arsenal, and I watched it live. Yeah, I watched it live. It was a cracker as well, and I remember telling my boys back in Ireland, this guy, I really hope we get this guy because he is a quality footballer. And they were like, no, he's overrated, because I think we all knew he was going to declare for England. And I said, no, trust me, this guy is quality. And he was. And I thought, I knew it hurt. It really, really hurt. But he had a contract situation. He had people in his ear. He's worth a lot more money as an England international. Look, there's a number of things. He's worth a lot more money as an England international. He's at West Ham, which, let's be honest, it's West Ham. If you've ever gone to it, sorry, West Ham fans, it's not the friendliest of places. And You know, we remember Combat 18, don't we?
Great bunch of lads.
Yeah.
Not
But yeah,
really, Jesus.
no. You know, there's all these kind of things, like it's that sort of area, it's that sort of club. Then you go and you've got like the chairman obviously wants to get more money because he's worried, because they know they're not going to keep a hold of him. He's currently at the club in 2022, but he won't be there for much longer. He probably will be at Man United. He's worth a lot more money as an England international. That's just the way it goes. And listen, 2018, he saw what he saw under Martin O'Neill, Roy Keane. It was a shit show. Why would you want to be a part of that?
But we spoke about this. Like, we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, and it's the whole idea that if you're Declan Rice, and like I've been, like, I don't know if you've been to Abbottstown, lads. Like I brought a couple of teams up there before, and like it's fine, you know, it's fine. But is the St. George's Park the FAE headquarters? St. George's Park. Imagine going around Abbottstown and being brought around by someone like John Delaney, and then imagine going to St. George's Park being brought around by someone like Gareth Southgate, and that being sold to you, and all these incentives and all these sponsorship deals being sold to you, and being told that you're going to be this, that, and the other if you play for England. Like, surely that was a big factor, and surely agents were at play here as well.
Of course, listen, there was, but this is Ireland were a shit show at the time, off the pitch, on the pitch, and the management has to take. And listen, I've said this before on previous podcasts. It does make my stomach turn when Roy Keane sits on ITV, an ITV panel for England games, and he's going on about how this guy's quality is a great player. I'm thinking you were part of the management structure, Mr. Bad Cop. Right, you and Bad Cop were on the management structure at the time. You were in charge of the management structure at the time, and you let this guy, or you aided this guy to slip through our fingers. So that really, and I think they get away. I think they get away with too much. And Roy Keane gets away with that a lot, by the way, and I don't think he gets enough welly for that, because he was part of that. The whole attitude towards Harry Arthur. And listen, there's been rumours for years. The last few years of English-based or English-born players getting absolute. We spoke about it here with Simon Cox on a previous podcast. You know, there's been a bit of an attitude towards English-born players. You know, so it's not a new thing. But with Rice, strikes me as a bit of a gobshite. Doesn't know what he's. You know, he's a young player, so he's obviously guided by agents and whatnot and management.
Very impressionable.
Oh, of course he's coming out with Up the Ra and all this kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden he's a proud Englishman. I don't, you know, and then my gran and nan would love to see me now representing Ireland, kissing a badge and all this kind of stuff. Now he's coming out with that. He'd
be turning in their fucking grave.
Yeah, he'd say, as we'd say in Ireland, he'd fucking say mass. He would, but great player. And unfortunately, it meant without Declan Rice, we'd be going back to Glenn Whelan.
Yes, Glenn Whelan replacing Glenn Whelan. So Mick McCarthy did have a few quotes in the phone call with Declan Rice. So just to read them out, I won't do the accent, even though everyone wants me to do it. Isn't that right, David?
Yeah.
So I'd been waiting for the response from December when I met Declan. McCarthy told Paddy Power podcast The Horse's Mouth. I just knew the longer this goes on, this is not happening. It was a blow. I kind of knew from meeting him he was not going to join us, and I got that feeling. It was no surprise when he rang me to tell me. I've been waiting for the response from December when I met Declan. I've been in touch and kept in touch. So when it finally did happen, I had a bit of a snarf at him down the phone. It wasn't, oh, thanks for letting me know. Good luck with that. I hope it goes well for you. It was, I don't know exactly what it was, but it was the opposite of that. Any ideas what it was, lads? Any guesses?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we can all guess at it. I mean,
fuck yourself.
Yeah, I think. I mean, look, I listened to you there chatting about this, and it's with regret and sadness. I think that I kind of look back at Declan Rice playing for Ireland, and I think I now hope he is one of the last ones who can qualify for Ireland and has played at under 16s, under 17s. He's won awards, Player of the Year awards, playing for Ireland. I hope he's one of the last ones who goes for our system and is able to and changes his mind. I hope it never happens again. I think it really saddens me to see the player he is become, because I'm gutted, basically, because I think we could be building a whole team around him. I think he's that good.
They knew how good he was, didn't they?
They knew how good he was, yeah. And I think one of the things that's a little bit lost in this is, he was when he was again. It goes back to the O'Neill era with him, where we were all. I think I was convinced he wouldn't turn and go to England. I was convinced of that, and I think that's why it probably hurts more than anything, because obviously seeing him as a brilliant player, but he played 3 times. He went and played with the under-21s. He learnt the anthem. He's kissing the badge. He's all those things. I mean,
joining the Ra.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff as well. I think that we do I think another relevant argument on this is the pressure he's under from his club. I think we spoke about that before. Contractual wise, you got to remember as well, he's best mates with Mason Mount. Look how well he's done with England and stuff. It's all those groups you're coming through at your club. We forget that he was brought up in the English youth systems in club football. So he's seeing players who are going off for England international duty. Okay, he was going to Ireland national duty under 16, 17, as I said. Really, really disappointing, obviously, that he made that decision. I felt very sorry for Mark O'Toole, who is the scout, one of the chief scouts in England, who recruits Irish qualifying players. We had him at a guest around the time that Declan made the decision. And this was when there was a lot of pressure being put on him in the media and stuff. James McLean was quite vocal. I remember at the time, it was when he hadn't played for Martin O'Neill and hadn't been called up. I remember Kilban was quite vocal on this in the media, saying, I'd rather play for a team 150th in the world or something. Just as it's my team, it's my country. It's not about the kind of glory of it in a way. And I think James McLean jumped on that as well and said, and we know James McLean's viewpoint as well. We've got to remember he made the switch from the north, so he probably had a good understanding of what Declan was kind of going through, in a sense. When Mark O'Toole met us in London, and he was kind of giving us a bit of a kind of background to, he knew Declan Rice, and he said, we've just got to give him time. I think he was very, very disappointed with the decision, because he believed that he was gonna declare for Ireland as well.
And they had a very good relationship as well, didn't they?
Great relationship. And I think he was very hurt by it, and Mick alluded to that as well, that he rang him and he kind of mentioned the disappointment that Mark was feeling, I suppose, because he's obviously invested a lot of time in him, getting these lads going over and giving them that good experience. You're hoping they're gonna feel Irish. I know many listeners now be going, "What do you mean they have to feel Irish?" But it's given them that good positive experience, and that's something now that we hopefully are finding with, some of our dual qualification players now. We want that. Kenny's spoken about that. Jim Crawford's spoken about that. I think, ultimately, I'm just left with incredible sadness about it. I think from the squad as well, the vibe was from, again, people who I met or knew, players, around the squad at that time. There is this vibe of the non-born Irish players. They don't like that. They don't like being questioned on that. And when James McLean was publicly doing so with Declan Rice, that's just the kind of synopsis of that was that this is going to end up driving him away. And we were told at that time that that James McLean had rang Declan Rice to kind of say, look, this isn't personal, kind of clarify his remarks and stuff. I think that was something they were desperate to kind of get across to Declan Rice. Obviously, it's not worked out, and it's obviously has for Declan Rice that he's qualified for England now and gone on to play in a European final. But yeah, I was just overwhelming sense of sadness that we've got this great player and he was in our grasp, and we never really done the business to get him involved enough. Tell him you are going to be the main man for us going forward. I don't care. They should have had a game down in Turner's Cross if they really wanted to do something. A big thing about Declan Rice, grandparents from Cork or wherever it is. That's the kind of stuff that you have to. Yeah. You can't let these quality players slip through our grasp and stuff. It's interesting. Yeah.
They should have got the bow on and the shotgun and went, there you go, mate. Get it. Yeah. What they should have done? They should have just named him on the subs bench and said, for the Nations League, said, listen, lads, listen, Declan, we just need to put you on, otherwise, we might get fined. He wouldn't know the difference anyway, lads' heads in the clouds. Yeah. And then when it was like 2 minutes to go, just shove him on.
Yeah.
Literally push him on. Declan, come here for a second, mate. Let me show you something and just fucking get him in there. Yeah.
It's funny as well, lads, because only a few days later then, so this is literally a week later, Mick came back to the press and he said, I'm trying to get Patrick Bamford and Nathan Redmond to play for me. Now, I think Redmond still actually qualifies, doesn't he? Like, he only played one game in a friendly, and I think Bamford's gotten a competitive cap since. But I mean, that was just kind of, it was pitiful at that stage, wasn't it? And they were that bit older as well. So it was a sorry state of affairs and a very bad start to the year and a controversial start to the year. And then just to make things even juicier, we come into March. David, do you want to talk us through the March? Because I know you're very, very fond of this story, as we all are, of course.
Just before David comes in and gives us the politics of the FAI, another key point I would like to say from Mark O'Toole's visit to us was, I think in the context of small margins, as we discussed on one of our recent podcasts with our players now, how they're doing on our Boys in Green podcast, where I was saying, and we were all discussing that, we claim and we praise the most smallest things that our players do. Mark O'Toole told us as well, like, it was, looking back now, it's crazy. Jack Grealish, obviously, we know that he played underage for Ireland. Harry Kane qualified for Ireland. And, we know, if you look back at Harry Kane's, career, basically, he was on loan for lots of teams, Millwall, Leyton Orient, things like that, and Leicester. He was really struggling at one stage in his career very early on. And he was being called up to play for Ireland. And then he got called back from a loan somewhere, scored some goals in a reserve game, and then got a first team call up then on the back of that. And then he just kicked on, and then he was never going to go to play for Ireland. That was it. Small measures, small margins like that. We were very close to getting some absolutely quality players who do qualify.
Do you know what that was, though? Right? And I know I don't want to, because we want to kick on with this, but that was just laziness. That was just laziness from the manager, from the management. So that would have been O'Neill, wouldn't it? That was just laziness from O'Neill. I'm sorry. I don't care what he did with Celtic and Leicester and all that. When he came to Ireland, it was just laziness. And this guy, this is why we needed someone like Steve McKennie coming in. I think if Mick even if Mick was in charge in 2018, he would have got Declan Rice on side, I believe, because Mick is a very charming guy, and he's quite impressionable on young lads as well. If you've ever met him, he's a lovely, lovely guy, but he just has a way, about him. He does carry, a little bit of respect in the game as well. And when Mick was in charge the first time in '96, he really, he even wrote to Rangers out of politeness just to see if they had anybody. Yeah, so he was Jack Park 2.0 in terms of player recruitment. And someone like Harry Kane we could have had, and we should have had Grealish, and quite frankly we should have had Declan Rice. It's just laziness, and this is why anyone listening to this, and I'll stop ranting about it, anyone listening to this is why paying these guys, these rock star managers on rock star wages, doesn't work, because already they've got you over a barrel because they're this footballing legend. It doesn't work anymore. It's an antiquated system. It's an antiquated style, and we need coaches. We need setups. We need to develop these players. We need to spot these young players. We need to get them involved, and we need continuity from the youth teams all the way to the senior team. That's the way the modern nations are doing it. That's the way we are now doing it. And anyone that thinks that we need to we get this big name guy in or whatever, absolute nonsense. And it's because of things like this.
Yeah. Right, David, take us through the March.
Oh, sorry. I was kind of hoping for like a break in my voice, but no, never mind. So basically, yes, now we get into the juicy details. So we spoke about our wonderful, fearless leader, Mr. John Delaney. So essentially, Mark Ty, I don't know the exact date of this, but I think it was about a week or so. He got a tip-off of a check for €100,000 that was paid by Mr. Delaney.
Just landed on his Mark Ty's desk, didn't it?
Yep, just landed on his desk. Yeah. Very, very Watergate esque. I won't say Marion Gate or anything, but like very Watergate, the original Watergate-esque, and Deep Throat, giving him all this information. And he was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. But obviously, because, pardon me, the libel laws in Ireland are so antiquated, and they unbelievably favour the rich and the powerful as enemies of John Delaney, I found out. And then, Brian, We're definitely getting sued, lads. But basically, they're so geared in their favor. You know, you have to tiptoe around these things with a tweezers. It's like it's like in a minefield. Like, you know, no matter where you've got to play with tweezers basically in a minefield, in this sort of minefield, because no matter where you turn, you could step on the wrong bit and you're gone, and your paper all of a sudden is £250,000 down. You're fired, or you're discredited, you're disgraced. So it was very brave for Mark Tighe and the Sunday Times to actually go forward with this. But anyway, so they said they would, and they could only report on the fact that this happened. We don't know what it's for, but John Delaney paid 100 grand back to the FAI, but we don't know what it's for. And of course, they gave John Delaney the right to reply to say, look, we're going to run this in the Sunday Times for the 17th of March. What do you have any comment on this? But we're going to go with it anyway, because the FAI, funded by public money, blah, 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 public interest. Of course, 16th of March, he's out having a jog, or he's about to have a jog, and John Delaney seeks a High Court injunction to stop it from against the Sunday Times from publishing these details. And basically, Mark Tighe is dragged down to the High Court, and I think literally the 11th hour, they got the case in. He got a solicitor, a very good solicitor, and the Sunday Times said, yeah, we're going to back you on this one, Mark. And thank God the judge, I don't know the judge's name, went in the favour of the newspaper, because John Delaney's trying to, because if that hadn't have happened, we'd still have this guy in charge of the FAI. Probably would, and nobody would be any the wiser, including the powers that be in Ireland, Sport Ireland, etc. This was a massive boot up the arse for football and sport in the Republic of Ireland, quite frankly. So the 17th of March 2019, the story breaks in the paper. And on the 19th of March, Sport Ireland, which provides €2.7 million funding to the FAI every year, requests urgent clarification from the board of the FAI about the loan and its repayment. Because Sport Ireland were not actually told about this. You know, they obviously give that money to the FAI, and one of the conditions is that if the FAI do fall into very hard times, as we all know they are now, they have to tell Sport Ireland. There was a similar situation with Cricket Ireland, where the CEO had to actually pay a bridging loan, as this would turn out to be. Yeah. And people say, oh, well, you know, what's the difference? And Sport Ireland said, yeah, the difference is he told us, because they had massive issues because of Test cricket, weather in Ireland's really bad, blah, 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 all sorts of stuff. And Sport Ireland went, yeah, fair enough. We understand that. And we get that. John Delaney had not told Sport Ireland. So that was going to be the start of a very, very bumpy road for Mr. Delaney and the FAI.
Yeah, and believe it or not, there was actually a bit of football in March as well.
Was there?
Yeah. So, and what was it? So it was the Gibraltar match, of course, in the car park of the airport. So a 1-0 win for Ireland. Jeff Hendrick scoring in the 49th minute, and Darren Randolph with an absolutely world-class save. But were the rumours coming out kind of that morning that John Delaney was going to resign, or was that kind of or that he was going to kind of re-announce his position or something like that? Like, what kind of happened that day? There was something that kind of popped up that day.
Yeah, at this, obviously we'll come on to talk about the trip, and we'll talk about the football, I'm sure, as well, because it's certainly memorable. The rumours were going around Gibraltar that morning that there was going to be an announcement and stuff, and this man was a man under pressure. John Delaney, you know, if you look back at Sports Files photos, a lot of them are of John Delaney in the stadium. You know, we found out a lot more, obviously, from Champagne Football afterwards, what was all going on. But yeah, this was where, seriously under pressure, under scrutiny, rumours that he was going to be stepping down, and then obviously magically then it was announced that he created this new role for himself within the FAI, so he could remain responsible for dealing with UEFA and FIFA, because he took great credit for that over the years. And to be fair to him, he did very well for Ireland in that part with UEFA. You know, he was an impressionable voice on our behalf at UEFA. You know, a small nation like Ireland, let's be honest, we are. We were represented at the highest tables with it. He was really, really well respected by those organisations. and he did well with them. You know, the fact that we had the Euros coming as well. We had underage tournaments that were supposed to be coming as well. He was highly respected. Really under pressure here, though. And yeah, this was the unraveling, as we come on to find out. But just on generally going to Gibraltar, fantastic trip. This was Mick's first game. Lots of speculation before it. Obviously, lots of demand for tickets. This was a big pressure game. Attendance of 2,000 at the Victoria Stadium. Awful kind of pitch. Awful stadium. To be fair, you know, it was two sides.
It was like something you see in a technical college or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, next to the runway where they were landing the Hercules military jets during the game, basically. It was just mad, you know, just totally windswept throughout it. But ironically, really high security around the game as well. You know, we went up to the stadium the day before to have a look and see if the lads were around training, things like that, just to kind of suss it out, really, because there were so many Irish fans who were going to be there without tickets. And it was to kind of have a look and see, because really there was no need for. There was rumours going around that they were going to actually let people in, because there was not going to be any safety concerns with it. Only I don't know how they. It's absolutely ridiculous the UEFA allow these kind of stadiums to host football. To be honest, if they can only accommodate 2,000, it was a massive payday. It could have been for Gibraltar.
It failed the ball failed the bounce test, didn't it?
Yep, it did.
Yeah,
How was the game still allowed to go? Go ahead.
I thought it was shocking. You know, I didn't get into the game, and I went on my own because I basically this was the start of Lansing Road. So Lansing Road, the Facebook page was supposed to be like a vlog, and me going around traveling all around Europe, and I wasn't very comfortable on the camera. I'm not saying I'm amazing on the camera now, but like at the time I was really uncomfortable. So I have a lot of footage, by the way, from this, and I'm going to release eventually, probably on the anniversary of the game. I have so much footage of, you know, behind the scenes and all that. But I couldn't get a ticket for the game because it was, I believe it was Gibraltar's first match. I might be wrong, Martin, but it was going to be held in Faro again, wasn't it? And they were like, yeah, it'll be in Faro. Absolutely in Faro. Now, I hadn't met Martin at this stage, and I wasn't a member of Risk London at this stage either. I'd always thought about joining, but just never got around to it. And I just travelled on my own, and I didn't get in. But I tell you what, I remember telling my mates back in Ireland, my boys, and I remember just saying, lads, we'll be very lucky. We'll be lucky to get a win here. If we get a 1-0 win here, you know, take it with both hands, because this could be Liechtenstein. Liechtenstein Part 2, where we drew 0-0 in 1995 in Eschen. You know, this could very well be. And you know what? Darren Ranelagh made a world-class save when it was 0-0. And people forget that. They moan about, we lost Luxembourg under Kenny. Yeah, well, we almost lost to Gibraltar. No, maybe it could have fired on a response. You never know. But it was terrible conditions. There was no stand at either end. The wind, I remember getting off the plane and just like walking over the runway. I did have a selfie stick. Christ. I know it's bad, isn't it? And the selfie stick broke because the wind was that bad. I went up to the stadium. Don't know if you remember this, Martin, but there was an absolute god-awful bang of shite around the stadium. It was right next to a sewage plant.
Yeah, it was.
Really bad. And where you see the stadium, like if you watched the game back, you see that like the rock, the airport to the left, and you see the rock on the right. My hotel was up that road, like on the back side of that. And I didn't realize this, but I actually booked a hotel in with the Gibraltar team. I didn't know. Like I came out of the gym, I just saw them going in. I was like, oh, I actually tried to sneak in, and your man saw me, just like slammed the door and pulled down the shirt. I was like, oh, but I remember on the way over, Martin. I think we must have been on the same flight, Martin.
We were, yeah.
We were. We just didn't know it, and I remember queuing up. And I was just standing there and all the fans. And yet again, I'm on my own, I'm taking it all in. And I turn around and I just heard his voice. And I turn around and he was with Jim Beglin. And little did I know that this would be the beginning of a love affair that still kind of goes on today, I suppose, on Twitter. Chatting away to him, lovely guy. I love Jim Beglin. Like he's one of my favorite. Him and George Hamilton, like my dream team commentary team. Probably
Does
most
he
people,
love you though? That's the question. Does he love you?
probably not after Gibraltar. No,
I wouldn't think so.
I remember anyway. Started chatting away to him, good as gold, and he puts the thumbs up, and I was like, hey, "Are you putting the thumbs up to Jim?" Oh, that's George. Yeah, he's in business class. Oh, okay. And Jim, obviously, I'd imagine because he's like freelance, isn't he? So George is in business class, and Jim was with the mere mortals like ourselves. And I thought, I really want to meet George because another icon of my childhood, I suppose. And I remember when I had a window seat, a so-called window seat. There was no window. It was just like black, grey plastic sitting down the end. I was giving the poor mouth to anyone who listened. Oh, I don't have a ticket. Oh, does anyone have a ticket? Of course, no one had a ticket. And I remember we landed and ran off the plane and waited for George and had a chat with George, and he was absolutely a gentleman. And I remember then it turns out when I got to my hotel that not only was it the Gibraltar team, but it was also where the RT commentators were and the Irish commentators were. So Kenny Cunningham was there with News Talk and George and Jim. And I bumped into Kenny Cunningham. He got a picture of him. He was very good about it. Bumped into Jim again. All right, Jim. I was like, oh, all right. And hello again, George. And kind of looked at me, what's this fucking idiot doing here?
With his selfie stick.
With me broken selfie stick.
Like some teenage tourist.
Yeah, it was really
teenage
bad.
girl tourist. Like
just needed a fanny pack on the front, like to really, my bicycle shorts to really, And anyway, I remember, I kept seeing him, and I was desperate for a ticket. I remember actually even shouting down to those Gibraltar team members, like, were staying on my side. I had a window view of just the rock. Just steep, like, it was like mountain view. I opened up the window and it's like just a fucking steep rock, like, and you kind of look up and you kind of see the sky. It was really a nice hotel though. And I remember coming out of a room, and who comes out of the room right across from me? And it's fucking Jim Beglin, isn't it? I was like, all right, Jim. He goes, oh, I think I've got a stalker now. It's like, no, Jim, this is my room. I swear to you. He goes, no, I'm only joking. It's like, no. It's like, you're probably not. And I'm even with Jim. I was like, oh, Jim, I've come over, to record this for my page, Lansdowne Road. Have you heard of it? No? Okay.
Jesus.
I was shameless, lads. And I was like, oh, come over. Don't have a ticket. Oh, and Jim, he's a sweetheart. He's like, oh, that's a shame. And I'm like, kind of looking at him, going, "Do you?" I was like, "Do you have a ticket?" Well, and he's kind of like chafing closer to the stairway to get away from me, and I'm kind of like, my puppy dog guys. It's like, I've come all this way, Jim, on my own, all the way. I'm an Ireland fan, on my own, no ticket. Oh, that's a real mistake.
Have you seen the Inbetweeners movie?
The first one.
Yeah, and your man who they're over Amalia, and then this guy just appears out of nowhere, and he's like, I'm here on my own, having a mental time. and they just kind of keep bumping into him. That's you with Jim Beglin.
That is me.
And then your man ends up and he start crying, and his parents have to pick him up. That's you, David. That's just you in Gibraltar.
Well, I felt like crying because I couldn't get a fucking ticket anywhere. And I messaged on the so he buggers off anyway. I was like, shit, he's going off to the game. Couldn't get anywhere. Went to the ticket. Apparently kept missing tickets. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anybody, and I was literally on my own. But listen, I had a great time. But I remember I had to watch the game in Casemate Square in the worst, shittest fan area ever. And I got stuck with these two lads from Ireland. I think it was 3 or 4 of them. They got tickets for the away end, and they basically said, your man sold them to him, and then he got back to him and said, you know what, actually, I'm going to give your money back because I don't think they'll let you in. And they're like, oh, this guy is very smart. He's very nice, this guy. What a lovely fella. I'm thinking, no, he's probably just found somebody who'll give him more money for it. Hey, you've been played, lads. And, if you didn't have a ticket, just don't wear your clothes and keep your mouth shut, because you look the same. Like, Gibraltarians, a lot of them look English or Spanish. Irish people look like English people. Just fucking say nothing. So I was stuck in Caseway Square watching up these lads, and I was trying to be polite. They were nice enough, but one fellow was off his rocker, and the other lad just kept talking about fucking. No, he wasn't Irish. He was from Manchester, and he kept talking at me. And I'm like, I'm trying to watch the game. I'm trying to watch this riveting game of football while these like young kids like start attacking me and kicking the ball at me and all this kind of stuff, bastards. I've actually got, yeah, they were bullying me.
That also happens in the In-Betweeners movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels here.
A lot of parallels.
But yeah, little fuckers like kept, I'm standing there and this guy like forces this ball, tries to do like a nutmeg and he kicks this ball through my legs, like forces this ball through my legs. And we're going, do you mind? And he ran off, and I've got pictures of all this. Unruly little bunch of fuckers.
Were there many in the square then watching it?
There was Irish fans. It was literally me and these two lads, and I had. It was really pathetic. I think I had an Ireland flag on me as well. It was really bad, and I just like, And I remember thinking, I'm just gonna watch it in the fucking hotel room on GBC. And I was like, no, I'll go out and watch it. I'll drink it in, And everyone was in the bloody stadium, and I never got in anyway. So I just remember on the way home, I was coming home because I was flying back, and then I had a few hours in London, and then I had to go and fly out to Dublin at 6 a.m. the next day, get the first flight out of Gatwick to Dublin for the Georgia game. And I remember just going home, and I was walking over on the runway, I was walking towards the runway. I think it was on the runway, and this guy just starts talking to me. And a fella, I don't know if he listens to the podcast, but he is a member of Risk London, a guy called Joe Loughran. I do like him. He's a good guy from Belfast. And he just starts chatting to me as Irish fans do. And he was just like, I'm from Risk London, and I told him I couldn't get in. He goes, why don't you join? Like, they can help you, get tickets. There's this dodgy fucker called Martin, and he always has these tickets and these connections, he'll get you in there. No, he didn't say that, but I remember going, okay. And it was really funny because we got to the airport and then we met more people. There's another fella, Jerome Murphy. If you listen, Jerome, I hope you're well down in Cork. And I remember they were telling these war stories about going to Anfield 95. Brilliant stories, great fun. I love just sitting there, believe it or not, with my mouth shut, just listening. I thought this is great. And then I was telling them about the Jim Beglin thing. Like, okay, I think Jim Beglin, like, I keep bumping into him, and it's kind of funny, and I don't mean to. And I'm literally walking in, and our flight's delayed, right? We find out our flight's delayed, and the later flight is now going to fly ahead of us. So, which is really annoying. And I remember I walk in and I'm telling him about Jim Beglin. And as I sit down, it's this guy with a newspaper. And as I sit down, he just lowers the newspaper and it's Jim Beglin. And he looks at me and just goes, I think this is getting very serious now. I'm like, Jim. And I said to that, it's like, when you tell him, I was like, there you go. Like, you probably thought I was talking through my arse. Like, there you are. This is proof. This has happened. Vindication. What a lovely guy. And his flight was ahead of ours, and Kenny Cunningham was there as well. And I remember it just goes to me, because the next away game was in Copenhagen. He goes, well, suppose you be staying in the land from me in Copenhagen,
It's like Victor Meldrew in Father Ted, I didn't believe it. He's bumping into him.
Yeah, it was just one of those, and I felt like saying to him, "No, Jim, I'll be in your bed when you go home, mate." No, sorry, it's a bit dark. I didn't
just a
bit dark, but no, lovely guy, great trip, and funny enough, by the time I landed and got off the plane, I'd actually put in all my details for the flight because it was a mechanical error, so it wasn't an act of God. And by the time I got off the plane, British Airways, because I was at the back, they make you walk all the way out the front. I had put in my my compensation claim, and that actually paid for my next away trip to Copenhagen. So I was absolutely well chuffed.
Yeah, all worth it. All worth the delay. Martin, how did you get on in Gibraltar?
Yeah, really good trip. As I said, we were staying in Spain, which is across the border, so it was a bit of a pain in the ass having to cross the border and then cross the runway. But a good adventurous trip overall. We went the night before, as I said, went to have a look at the stadium the night before. Quite strict with security, shouted at us to get out. I think the whole idea of that was to kind of see if locations for flags.
Probably because you were nicking the corner flags again.
Yeah, probably, yeah. But I think it was just more that a lot of Irish fans were trying to sussing out locations of for their flags basically on the match day. That's something that we probably a quite unique nation that some of us think of that. But yeah, really good. Lovely little harbour there, kind of little marina that was quite popular with all the Irish fans, a few Irish bars. The night before the game, we watched Declan Rice sit on the bench for England on his international debut. So that was quite interesting. And obviously match day, buzzing around the town. Good atmosphere pre-game, flags up in the pubs and everything like that. They certainly wanted us in there. Had music bands on, things like that. And off we went into the stadium. Really, really good. I brought Kean with me. He was 7 or 8 then, so he was in good form. It's just Gibraltar's a bit of a strange place, to be honest. It's just like England, with the bobbies. The police are all around wearing the English police uniform, so it's no different.
They're not the friendliest, though, are they?
No, they're not. Well, English basically. Expats and stuff. It is a little bit like that. It is. They're odd. There's actually a TV program on Gibraltar and the island or whatever it's called. Odd People. I'll tell you that now. From the TV show. But it was just a perfect backdrop for the football because with the rock, it looked amazing. That's the good thing about it. Some of the photos do look brilliant. Like, you've got this massive big rock. And we went up that the next day and had a look around with the monkeys and stuff and flags and photos up there. But it was a really good trip, to be honest. And one thing I would say is, the Irish fans in fine voice. It was, as again, the football was a distraction from having a bit of a crack in the bars and stuff. And after the game, I'll never forget. It's a nice story that's about Irish fans and some of the Y-biggers, basically. We went back for something to eat after the game. The news was breaking that John Delaney was stepping down and had created this role for himself. That was obviously well documented at that time. But we'd had a few beers celebrating the 1-0 win, I suppose, after the game, and it was like time to get home kind of thing. Look, like for me anyway, with my son there, obviously. And I was with a few other lads going there, and we said I would have a nightcap in this pub. It was absolutely jumping, and I went up to there was doorman on the door, like Irish fans in there, absolutely brilliant, like great crack in there, loud, loads of singing, everything going on. And the doorman went, you want to be a bit careful, probably, with him. I said, look, I'm literally coming in for one, and if it's too rowdy, look, I'll have him in the corner. I'm not going to stick around long. I just said we're coming in for one. I went in there, and everyone's standing around singing and stuff. Like there's, music playing, obviously dancing around, all that kind of people on shoulders, everything like that. It is rowdy. I'm not going to lie, it was. But this woman comes over to me, lovely girl, come over and said, she goes, oh, how are you? And she started chatting to Kean and stuff and goes, you all right? And she just went, do you like playing Nintendo? And like Kean went, yeah. He goes, oh, look, all the kids are down the back of this pub. And there must have been 5 or 6 little kids, all in Irish kits and stuff like that. And they were all like, it was like we created our own creche on an Irish trip at the back end of the pub where they were just sitting on settees and like just all playing games, and they were all like getting along, having a bit of crack, like jumping around a little bit. And one of the best things I've ever seen was I don't know what song, it was one of our Irish songs. It might have been Shane Long's On Fire, that one, or whatever it was. But whatever it was, we had all the kids kind of got passed over shoulders. And we're up on I obviously found Kean, had him like legs over my head, on my shoulders, and all the kids just like shouting around, singing and stuff like that. Just absolutely brilliant. And then we got out of there, thankfully. But it was just amazing because obviously people went there for the holidays and stuff like that. So but all good natured, just absolutely brilliant crack. But then the other problem was then you're trying to get home and you're trying to get across the runway, basically.
Yeah,
and you're trying to find your way home. So, yeah, really good trip. We haven't really spoken about the football. The football wasn't brilliant. Mick McCarthy summed it up really well. He was just grateful to get out there with the 3 points. It was his first time with the team. I remember just a speculation before the game. We were talking about the fact that he was playing Doherty, and that's Doherty, Mr. Martin Tyler, with Seamus Coleman's team. So that was a good thing. And I think, like, to be fair to Jeff, Jeffrey, you're one of your favourites, I know. He took the goal very well. And, I think, like I said, Mick was just happy to get out of there with the 3 points. Like
Yeah.
David said, on them small trips, on them trips where it's a small fan base going, you're always running into good characters and meeting people. And yeah, we met Kenny and George Hamilton, and absolutely brilliant Jim Beglin, absolutely great.
Yeah. So Martin
really
touched on it. Yeah, Martin touched on it already, but immediately after the FAI did issue that statement revealing that John Delaney has stepped down as chief executive and had appointed himself as the executive vice president of the FAI with the responsibility for dealing with UEFA and FIFA. So then on the 24th of March, just a couple of days later, the Sunday Times published further details about Delaney's remuneration package, a word I never know how to say. So he'd be earning 360 grand a year. So just a mere 360 grand a year. And the FAI paid his 3,000 monthly rent over a long period of time. And the FAI did announce the new position will pay a lot less than the previous one. The poor bastard. So 26th of March then, lads, believe it or not, another football match. 1-0 win against Georgia. Conor Hourihane scoring a lovely free kick on the 36th minute. But of course, that game remembered for all of the tennis balls. I was at that game, lads, and I just remember being really frustrated. Now, partly because I think it was a tense atmosphere, wasn't it? Very tense with the stuff going off the pitch, but also Georgia, who've been kind of one of our bogey teams. But it did kind of contribute to a bit of a pause before the goal, didn't it? But that was madness, that game, wasn't it? It was very bizarre, very, very bizarre.
Yeah, I remember actually being quite pleased with the first half performance. I thought I had actually witnessed more football in those opening few minutes in that first half than I'd seen on I think the 3 games under Martin O'Neill.
It was the first time we dominated Georgia ever. And I mean,
yeah,
we were very comfortable. I think like it was Hourihane and Hendrick playing kind of in the more advanced roles, weren't they? And Whelan was playing as the holder. And Whelan was just sitting completely deep. The Georgians just couldn't get any passes away because Whelan was just blocking the space. He didn't actually have to run much. He was just blocking the channels completely. And then Hourihane and Hendrick were just pushing on. They're putting so much pressure on the midfielders because they used to dominate. Georgia would dominate the midfield, but Hendrick and Hourihane were just pushed on, and it was very, very dominant.
Yeah, it was very good. I mean, unfortunately, where I was standing front row behind the goal in the singing section, you don't really get to see it from an analytical point of view. But I just remember we were just really pushing up and we were just around their box quite a lot. So unfortunately, from an analytical point of view, I couldn't really give you much, but I just know that we just seemed to play a lot better. Excuse me, the crowd seemed to be behind it. And I remember there was rumours of the protest, and I think Mick said, "Oh, I need to bring a tennis racket, but please don't do that. That's not what we do." I was happy with it. The 33rd minute was the protest because obviously the 33rd team of the World Cup and the bribe. Sorry, not the bribe. The loan that never got paid back by FIFA.
Resting in his account.
Just resting in the FAI account. And, Damien Duff as well at half time was giving out about it. I'm not being funny. But this is the sort of thing that I think we needed. And I was very disappointed with Duff, who, said, no, we almost conceded the goal. But this sort of thing needed to happen, right? We had people like Shane Ross up to this point saying about, he actually said in 2018, and it's ironic, as you'll listen to, I think maybe part 2, Shane Ross comes into this series, but he was the Minister for Sport and Tourism. And he was going on saying, oh, yeah, John Delaney, he's doing well. The FAI is a well one thing, and the fans love him, anyone to speak to. Like, who are you speaking to? Is it that team down in Kerry that has the John Delaney Stadium or wherever it is? Is that, what matches are you going to? Like, there's banners being taken down. There's people being threatened, being sued. Clearly not reading the papers. Clearly hasn't got a fucking clue what he's talking about.
No,
and
idiot.
So we needed to have something like this. Say, we're not happy about this. And we have to keep the pressure going. We have to garner attention. We have to get UEFA's attention. We have to get the press attention. Now they can talk about it because of a judge, thankfully, saw in the favour of Mark Tighe and the Irish Times. And so, someone like Duff, who never spoke out about it before, some of the ex-players never spoke out about John Delaney. They all knew what was going on under this guy, and not one of them said a word about it. Roy Keane touched on it in his press conference after the 2009 handball incident, and he touched on it and said, "Oh, I wouldn't believe a word that John Delaney says. I wouldn't believe that man." Do you remember he was the only one saying it? Yeah. He was the only one. Now, to be fair to Keane, he touched on it, but then he got into bed with him, so to speak. But I understand that as well, because you want to manage Ireland, you got to deal with him, and that is what it is. But nobody said a word about this guy. And Damien Duff, very disappointed with him, comes out and says, "Oh, the fans are," I don't know what the exact words he used, but I know he wasn't happy about it, kind of criticised him. I think Richie Sadler was actually saying, no, like, the fans are unhappy. They have to show their content. You're taking banners from these people. You can't have any banners out. You're not allowed That's another thing that people forget. You weren't allowed protest.
Yeah. It's an dictatorship.
Yeah, it was an autocratic regime. From the FAI, from this guy, people were getting their banners taken off them in Denmark, for Christ's sakes. The Danish stewards were taking them away. So you couldn't protest, so you had to do something. And, they were saying that, the FAI stewards are very heavy-handed. They're actually not. Trust me, I've worked in football in England for years. It's actually very, the security isn't great, to be honest with you, in the Aviva, in terms of, like, pat-downs and stuff like that. Don't really do pat downs or anything. But yeah, they were right to protest. I didn't bring a ball in myself. I was there. I almost got hit in the head with a couple of tennis balls myself. But look, if you get hit with a tennis ball, it's not going to do any damage, is it, if it's thrown by hand? So it was kind of harmless in a way. But no, very poignant, and absolutely, totally agreed with 100%.
Yeah, I think the frustration for this was that, the fans felt they couldn't protest. And, I remember just the amazing security presence in front of the singing section, because they were anticipating trouble. And, again, there was rumours that this was going to happen and what sort of protest it would be. Again, though, like, bringing it back to the football, if you look at the goal, what I love about that is the celebration. And Glenn Whelan plucks this ball out of the air that was reminding me of Henry Shefflin back in the heyday, basically, because there's tennis balls launched on at that stage in the celebrations, and he just catches it and then launches it back into the crowd. Absolutely brilliant. It's very, very funny, actually. But yeah, I mean, I know the Duffer thing and the Sadler debate afterwards obviously detracted from the football, but yeah, I had sympathy for the Irish fans who wanted to protest and weren't able to, and perhaps the alleged heavy-handedness. You can see the security and things of in front of the singing section, as I said. And yeah, I mean, it was just they didn't really have a voice and stuff, and I understand that. But again, I think the whole point of it was it's going to distract from the football, and Mick had put his appeal out to it as well. I mean, I think we did play really, really well. Mick after the game was absolutely glowing. He said we played really well, and I think even Phil Babb said, after coming in 18 months ago, this was a really poor team, struggled against Denmark and Aarhus and stuff. Didn't look as if we were going anywhere, and Mick had turned it around quite quickly with those kind of same players. Yeah. I think McGoldrick played really well up front as well. Interesting, again, Doherty didn't start this one, so he'd already kind of, probably from the Gibraltar game where he'd seen it didn't work, Mick's just clever, and he just thought, I'm not going to force this now. We need to get a result here. What's going to be the best way of getting a result? Well, it's actually dropping Doherty and going with this other kind of back four that he played. So, yeah, it was good to see. But again,
I just remember him pushing the lads on, like we were 1-0 up, and rather than sitting back, because I mean the amount of Ireland games in the last decade or so where we sit back and we concede late, he was saying push on, push on, push on. So it was such a telling difference. David, do you want to talk us through the April? So even more drama in the John Delaney camp.
Yeah, sit yourselves down, lads. Strap yourselves in. It's going to be a bumpy ride. So April 3rd, sound very American there. Sport Ireland Chief Executive John Tracy appears in front of the Oireachtas Committee on Tourism, Transport and Sport. He is not impressed by the failure of the FAI to issue an explanation for the €100,000 loan. He's not the only one. He declines to voice confidence in the board of the FAI on 3 different occasions. Very strong stuff there.
You just couldn't make this shit up, could you?
No, it was just constant. It was I lost track of it. It was just absolutely constant stream of shit coming down a very steep hill very fast. On the 8th of April, the FAI admits the misleading statements about the €100,000 loan and said comments it made did not accurately reflect the board's level of awareness. The association says it has accountancy firm Grant Thornton on site to review its books, records and ledgers. On the 10th of April, extraordinary scenes at the Oireachtas Committee on Sport as John Delaney reads a prepared statement and then refused to answer any questions about the €100,000 cheque or his 13 years as FAI chief executive. Anyone who has a short memory of this, basically the FAI were dragged in front of the Oireachtas. For our UK listeners, like Martin, who doesn't know what the Oireachtas or can't pronounce what the Oireachtas is, it's basically, quite frankly, a watered down, shitter version of being dragged in front of the MPs over here in London. Now, in London, when you're dragged in front of the MPs on that the committee or whatever it's called, they rip the arsehole out of you. They absolutely go to town on you. And they do. If you ever watched it, I remember he had your man from Sports Direct on it. He got absolutely annihilated on this, Mike Ashley did. And the panel, they really go to town on you. It's really vicious. And you can say whatever you want because parliamentary privilege. You could say whatever you want about anybody within Parliament rules, okay? Ireland, they had this wishy-washy Oireachtas thing, and it was a pile of shite, quite frankly. You can be sued by the person on the receiving end of this, and it was actually a case, and this was outrageous, where I think it was a TD or a senator asked something or made a statement about somebody, and they successfully sued. This is all covered in Champagne Football, by the way, which is outrageous that this can. Now, obviously, you shouldn't be able to abuse such a position. But if something's the truth or something happened, you should be able to say that. And I go back to the libel laws in Ireland. And unfortunately, this was a pile of shite. John Delaney was dragged in front of the Oireachtas Committee. This man should have been skewered. He should have been hammered into. He should have been lashed out of it. And he should have been. And this is what
he might have enjoyed it.
He probably would have, actually, yeah. Well, we don't know. He did take a lot of cash out in the old company credit card, didn't he? Allegedly. But instead, he takes a note out from his fucking mammy, right? And goes, I'm not going to answer any questions here today. I'm under legal advice. My solicitor tells me that I can't answer any questions here because that's just the way it is. And I went, okay, that's fine. What was the point? What was the point in it? This guy had to explain, I think, 13 years of being a chief executive of the FAI and how this was a shit show. And he was just allowed to get away with it. And he just sat there while Donald Conway, bless him. Now, a lot of guys were asleep at the wheel, obviously, on the board. We know that, read Champagne Football. The board, unfortunately, was very incumbent. Is that the word? Is that the correct word?
Yeah.
They were very incumbent. And John Delaney, from what you can tell from the book, it looks like Delaney had actually sort of maneuvered the board, and anyone that dare challenged him was a threat or by just how dare they try and ask him, request him to do his job.
But it's kind of like, I remember being in school and we were talking about King Lear. We were studying King Lear, and my English teacher at the time said, Michael Jackson was told forever that he was right and that he was great, and he was never told no, and he was never told he was wrong, and he started believing his own hype, and then he could do whatever the fuck he wanted, no matter how fucked up it was, because there was no consequences in his psyche. It was the exact same for John Delaney.
Well, of course it was. Like, he had the board by the balls. Like, they were like, oh yeah, you're some man, John. Yeah, no, you're brilliant. You are, John. Well, I'm the only one who can talk to you away from FIFA. Oh yeah, no, John, you do that, because there's too many people on that board that didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have a clue. Look, the fact you have a president of the FAI, right? And this isn't a personal attack on any president that we've had at the FAI, but it's just the structure of the FAI. This sounds like a bingo club, or one of these, like, you get a lot of the committee clubs over here, Martin, like a conservative club or a working man's club, when you have a committee and you have a president, whatnot. This is an association that has a turnover of whatever million it is. Okay, it's something like, I think it's like 24 million. It doesn't matter. Once you have a million involved, this should be a professional outfit. when you were in charge of the game of football, the largest game in the world, most played game in the world, most played game in Ireland, you have these guys in charge of this. You need to get the top people to run this. And they haven't, and that's why football's in the state it's in. The fact that you have a fully professional, in inverted commas, CEO who's on a massive salary, and he has to answer to a president who is voluntary. And that's what people have to remember here. The president of the FAI back in 2019 was voluntary. They did not get paid. They had another job. Donald Conway I think he was a principal, school principal at this time. I've met Donald Conway. I think he's a very decent man, by the way. A very nice guy. However, you should not have somebody who is not professional and then have somebody professional answer to that. Okay. You should not, like the CEO, it was just ridiculous setup. And he ran roughshod over the board and basically got away with murder, and that's why he was in the state he was in. And it just annoyed me, like, and evidently so, still annoys me that this guy then brought in front of the Oireachtas, made all this done all this damage, and he didn't have to answer a single question. Didn't have to answer a single question. And I think then in the book it says that in the first half of this, I think he took a fresh break or a refreshment break, and they asked the journalist, "So how are we down?" The journalist went, "You're getting fucking your arse handed to you. It's embarrassing." And then they went, "Okay, you're right. So we'll start attacking John Delaney through other people and having a go at Donald Conway and having a go at other members of the board." I can't remember. He was the treasurer as well, the former guard who's like about 90.
Yeah, Eddie Murray.
Yeah. Yet again, why do you have a 90-year-old man as a treasurer? Do you know what?
That was Graham, wasn't it?
The brilliant thing about this was, again, at the start of the show, we said about how this was the mad year in Irish football, and this sums it up basically. This whole day, amazing, really. I mean, just to kind of help the hype and speculation about this was all. We thought this man was really under pressure now, and he's going to have to spill, and still he didn't, which I kind of admire in a way, because how he got away with it was incredible. Because he just, like you said, he put out his letter and he said, "I can't answer anything about this bridging loan," and that was it. And so they couldn't, and it was just amazing. I mean, I felt so sorry. I mean, we actually watched this. Like that's the sad thing. You could watch this live, and I did. So, and I remember just thinking, like, other people here are being hung out to dry, but then it was the cringeworthy Irishness come through to this when Healy Ray is it when he starts saying you all get the mother and welcomes.
Michael Healy Ray. Around.
Like just disgusting, wasn't it? It was just disgusting.
He was paid for that. He didn't need to be there, and he was there. He was supposed to ask a question, and he goes on and he gushes towards, John Delaney. Well, I see a man. He made a statement. I see a man here who's only done his best to help Irish football, and yet the mother all welcomes when you come down to Kerry next man. How fucking dare he? He's being paid by the taxpayer to sit there to do that. Doesn't need to be. He's a very wealthy man, fair enough. And Ruth Coppinger, she even had a go at him as well, and rightfully so. It's like, and just Fergus O'Dowd, I think. Yeah, she was really good. But actually, just to touch on Eddie Murray again, right? It's in the notes. This all happened here. It's in the notes here. So he was honorary treasurer, right? You have an honorary treasurer, okay, of an entity that's making millions. An honorary treasurer. Outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. You should be paid for this. You pay top people. If you're making top money, you pay top people top money to look after your top money. It's fucking simple. They have an honorary treasurer, right? No, there's nothing against Eddie Murray personally, but I think he was like 79 or something. And then he states that the FAI has only one bank account. I have about 5 bank accounts. There isn't any fucking money in any of them, but I've got 5 bank accounts. Turns out they had 24. Yeah. That's outrageous. Like,
disgusting.
And it was horrible that this poor man, former guard, the whole lot. It was Martin. You hit the nail on the head. This was Irishness at its worst. Okay, I'm very proud to be Irish and all that, right? I really am. I tell everyone I'm from Ireland, and I am. I tell everyone from Ireland, and I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of our achievements. I'm proud of us as a people. But for whatever reason, you have people in charge of things in Ireland that should have no right to be there. It's bad over here in Britain, but it's many times worse in Ireland. And this is just, and it's, and then you have like Sport Ireland and the, well, the FAI, this and that. Yeah, well, where were you guys? Like, you knew this was happening. You knew, well, you didn't know the absolute details, but you fucking knew that there was stuff going on within the FAI, that things weren't right. And you just turned a blind eye to it because you didn't understand it. You didn't want to understand it. And then all of a sudden you're putting the kicks into football. And, I felt bad for the good people at the FAI. I really did at this time. And there are a lot of good people at the FAI, and they all got turned with the same brush. A lot of people working on fuck all money because basically the man leading it cut all their wages and never brought him back up again while he had his rent paid for.
Yeah, you're right on that point, because I think there are decent people at the FAI, still are there now, and they genuinely do have a love for Irish football and want to see us do well, whatever way they. I mean, that for a lot of people, even if you think about club football, if you were working for Man United or even a lower league club or whatever it is, you do that in a way. You love the fact you work for that club if you love the club or you love your country and you think you can make a difference. I mean, that's how football was always evolved as an industry. And this was a situation here where everyone was being tarred with the whole kind of corrupt brush. I spoke to the morale within the FAI was really, really low at this time. People were embarrassed to kind of wear anything with the FAI logo on it, thinking, God, you work for that shower, or they're all corrupt. Oh, your mate's at this and stuff like that. Even supporters clubs. We weren't. We kind of got dragged into this kind of whole debate as well at times and stuff. There were statements released and things. It was just madness, really, because John Delaney was just looking for backing from people, and that's where I think the Healy Ray thing was. It was like he had a friend in there. I remember when watching that, really cringing when the camera pans to Delaney and he's kind of got a wry smile on his face, and it's like he's embarrassed because of Healy Ray's over the top mother and father of all welcomes kind of quote. I mean, very clever that he basically in this Oireachtas committee where he is supposed to be accountable, he's pulled out this note. He references that every time. It's the equivalent to it being in a police investigation where they're interrogation, where they're asking you questions that you're going, no comment, no comment, no comment. You can't really do that there, so he pulls out a note on it. And he can refer every answer to even other people. Then I can't comment on that. I've already explained my position. I've explained my legal advice and stuff without any foundation. Not actually showing you the advice he's got. He's just referring to it. So he got out of it. I mean, Ruth Coppinger brilliantly summed it up. This is Hamlet without the prince. That was it. A brilliant line, I thought, because that was it. You're asking the questions, and the main person who is accountable for all this, because he's worked the angles that it's going to be that I'm the main man and I pull all the strings from the FBI, which we know was happening. That was it. That's why you had older people on committees and things. Thankfully, those days hopefully well behind us. But that's why he was the main man accountable. They couldn't get to him. They just couldn't get to him because he protected himself so well.
And and that's just the Irish laws. That's what the libel laws, and it just protects the wealthy and the greedy and the corrupt. It's absolutely outrageous. I'll continue through the dates. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on a fucking rant there, but it winds me up because football, for a generation, is irreversibly damaged for a generation, and I'm going to miss out on that, and it's wronged all because of this level of competence. And anyway, we'll continue. Basically, from that on the 10th, Ferguson O'Dowd, the committee chairman or chair, calls on Delaney and the rest of the FAI board to step down. On the 12th of April, talks begin in the FAI over the loan controversy and Delaney's future with the organisation. The FAI's chief sponsor says it regards good corporate governance as being of the utmost importance. That is 3, by the way. On the 13th, a friend of Delaney claims he has offered to step down from the FAI but will continue his UEFA role. Of course he would. It is understood this offer to step down will be considered by the FAI board on Monday. On the 14th, the Sunday Times reports on Delaney's spending on his work credit card in the final 6 months of 2016. Yeah, I think it was like 60 grand or something, wasn't it? Or somehow. Now,
insane.
Without receipts. Now, if you ever have a company credit card, anyone, the basic thing is cash is a very bad You don't use it. You don't use cash. You don't use it to take out cash from an ATM. And I think that's what he did with the company card. And that is just a major, major no. But he did all that. On the 15th, amid a growing sense of crisis around the association, Delaney goes on gardening leave on full pay while a number of investigations proceed at Abbottstown. The thing is, people have criticised the FAI for that. They had no choice to really. That's what he had these guys over a barrel. He had absolutely no choice. They had no choice but to pay him this money, which is outrageous. But he got himself in a situation, and they have to. When you're on gardening leave, that's all he could do. You know, don't come into the office. Don't talk to anybody in the office. But you're paid on. You're given full coin to try and sound hip. But that is just. That's
He's
just
like a Bond. He's like a Bond villain.
Yeah, but that is just how it is. You know, he outplayed and outmaneuvered everybody, including the Irish government. Then on the 24th of April, Mick says the FEI issues have no bearing on the squad. To be honest with you, they're probably used to it at that stage. And that brings us in.
It was getting to the stage where every single international window was about John Delaney.
Yeah.
Like it was just went with it. Like whether it be him just piping up, you know, trying to be involved and trying to be popular, or whether it was a controversy, he was maybe not the center of attention, but he was certainly one of the key focal points for every international window for a number of years. And it's pathetic, like pathetic. I couldn't name the CEO of any other national team. I couldn't even tell you who the FAs is.
No.
Yeah, you know, like it's pathetic. And the worrying thing was a lot of people could name ours. Like a lot of people from other countries could name ours. And Sky Sports did a feature on him, and it was absolutely fucking pathetic. I actually wrote a complaint, and I must dig it out. I'm actually going to dig it out and screenshot it, and I must put it on the page. But I wrote a complaint to Sky Sports. They were basically following John Delaney around for a day, and it was almost like watching Mother Teresa getting followed around for the day. And then, you know, he's there picking his twins up from school. They were only small at this stage. And I was like, oh my God, did I not realize this is about 10 years ago? I think it was actually in the build up to Euro 2012. And I
was it as bad as John the Baptist by The Independent?
Yes, it was. Well,
that is gas.
Well, it was up there. It was up there, but it was absolutely pathetic. I actually wrote an email to Sky News, and I was like, what are you doing? Don't promote this man. He's up to seriously bad shit.
Even you, Nick.
Yeah, I know.
How old were you in 2012? 5?
2012, I was 5. Yeah. What age is I? I was even 19. 20. Sorry, right, 20.
So as Nick says there, even in 2012, at the age of 5, he knew what John Delaney was about. And yet you got someone like Shane Ross going on. He's a wonderful man. Everyone loves him. You know, everyone. I never hear anything bad about him at all the League of Ireland games. that one solitary League of Ireland game that Shane Ross must have gone to for about 5 minutes. I went, God, get me away from these people. He didn't hear one bad thing about John Delaney at the League of Ireland, the man who called the League of Ireland the problem child of the FAI, which is just outrageous. You knew, we knew, we all knew. We couldn't write about it. People were gagged, and and the government did as well. So a lot of blame to go around, and nobody comes out of this smelling roses. Nobody, and
no winners from this at all.
No. Just thank God he's nothing to do with the association, and even now. They can't even get him to trial. They can't get his emails.
Well, I don't know about that because we're still feeling the impact. Like we've no money. We've absolutely no money.
Yeah.
And I saw something on one of the fan pages today, or one of the fan groups today. Someone selling like counterfeit jerseys because, and you know, obviously to make a profit, but also because they're anti-FAI and they're like, why would you give money to the FAI? And now maybe we don't want to give money to Jonathan Courtney, but anyway, argument for a different day. But this whole argument as well, like it's turning people against the FAI, and in turn, they're not buying jerseys, they're not buying gear, and the result of that is that the FAI are short in pocket, all as a result of John Delaney's actions. So the lack of trust, the the lack of respect. These kind of things have a much bigger impact that are going to last for years and years and years to come.
It does. I mean, that is the thing. It does have an impact on all those things you said. You know, we don't have a sponsor now. No one wants to be associated with us. We even like kids and stuff going through. I know this is I'm like a broken record on this, but again, who do you want to bring your kids up playing football and wanting to, you know, giving them an Ireland shirt where they are representing something that is perceived by a lot of the population to have been poorly managed over the years and stuff. You know, it will come down to hopefully results on the pitch, lifting the nation, and our players obviously doing that as well and creating heroes. I keep saying that we need to do that. We need to jump on things like that, get kids behind it, get them demanding their mum and dads to bring them to games, do deals for families to be able to go and stuff. You know, the days as well. You got to remember this, that we weren't selling out the Aviva in a lot of these games. There was a lot of furore about tickets being given away to kids to make it look. You know, Delaney was famous for giving away tickets just to fill up the stadium and stuff, to create noise, create an atmosphere. Brilliantly, that's fine if you're doing that. But where they got that wrong is they were, you know, doing deals with like supporters clubs or trying to get us to sell tickets on their behalf. You know, people got wise to that. They thought, well, why am I going to pay for a ticket now on these stupid duo deals they used to do? We used to have we'd have a double header, and one would be against a good team. Someone on the other team would be absolutely crap, but you'd get a deal that you'd buy the 2 tickets, and everyone just got wise to it and thought, well, what I'll do is I won't go to the other game. Or so you're encouraged to kind of give your tickets away, but they just couldn't sell out the stadium, and people were losing faith with it, and that's what they've got to get right now. I know we're going off on a kind of going off on a tangent here, but that's what they've got to get right now with the next season ticket package to get people back in the stadium. They've really got, it's a really hard sell at the moment now for Irish football. I mean, you know, we've had a big break of it now, but again, they've got to just get it right. I don't know how they're going to do it, but it's such a challenge for them now, and so we are feeling ultimately the outcome of this shit show that was going on, and this is the start of it. Obviously, we're still feeling that now, badly, really, and feeling the pain.
Yeah, for sure. David, a few other bits to kind of wrap up on, I suppose. Not a huge amount more.
No, 2nd of May, UEFA confirmed that John Delaney, Executive Committee member and Youth Committee chairperson, will not be attending the European Under-17 final staged in Ireland. Poor John. A competition that was won by the Netherlands. And then, I know, and then on the 20th of May, and this is probably, lads, where we might as well wrap it up, Noel Mooney is appointed interim CEO.
Yeah, and that's going to open up a whole can of worms and a lot of excitement for David. But unfortunately, not in this episode, but definitely in the next one. So we're going to leave it there for the first part of 2019, the craziest year in Irish football, as we've just decided at the start of the episode. But we will be back with part 2. David will be delving into his 1 hour of magic in heaven with Noel Mooney, with the luscious Noel Mooney. But but we don't have the energy really to talk about that yet. So we're going to leave it there. Let us know what you think. Let us know your memories from this year. Were you at any of the games? Did you share a corporate box with John Delaney? Did he give you any tickets? You know the drill.
I'm
just trying to see. I might read out my farewell message from him.
Full disclosure. So we'll leave it there, and we'll be back next week. So take care and God bless.